And now we're going to start with one of the first descriptions of the breakout sessions. Roger Luckman of Massachusetts will describe what he will do in his breakout session until you'll hear him discuss this for 7 minutes. Roger?
Okay, thank you very much, Robert. Next slide, please. So we think it's a good idea to have a plan for electrifying your home. Before you take even the first step, if you kind of know where you're going to be headed in the next few months or the next year or two, there are some benefits that we'll talk about in our group to kind of knowing where you're going and doing the first things first and the next things next. Sometimes makes sense rather than just waiting for something to break down and have to replace it. Fortunately, an organization called Rewiring America has put together an online planner that has options for planning for all types of homes and even for renters. It allows you to kind of put in data about where you currently stand with electrification and then to explore lots of different options. There's tons of information and links and a way to track your progress as you move through the process. Next slide. So this is what the program looks like with Rewiring America. It asks you if you're wondering where to start, and then it takes you right there. You put in some information about your house, brings up a little picture of your house with a circle around it, and it asks for some information about what you've already done initially. Next. So they'll ask you about whether you had an energy audit in your home, what kind of energy efficiency measures you may have already undertaken, hopefully some. Have you done any electric system upgrades, or where do you stand with your electric system? How many amps? How many volts? And then what kind of heating do you have? What is the fuel? Is it oil, gas, propane, electricity? Do you have an air conditioning system or not? And then about your water heating system. What kind of water heater? What fuel is it? And solar. And then your range. What's going on with your stove, your range? Do you have an EV and a charger? So they ask you about all of these things and gather that information for you right there. Next. So I undertook this myself, and here's the story of my house. I can't say, like Robert, that I have fully electrified yet, but I'm on my way. I'm on my journey, and the planner was very helpful to me in getting going. So first, I put in my status around these various things, and I was already kind of well along in my journey when I got started with this, and I had had an energy audit, and I did what they recommended. They suggested I insulate my attic, bring somebody in to do some air sealing. In our state in Massachusetts, and I think in many states, utilities offer these energy audits at no cost. Energy efficiency measures in our state also are rebated very significantly. So my insulation work was real cheap. Windows are a little pricier, but I put in some double pane windows in the porch where I didn't have them. The real challenging piece for me is before putting in insulation. Back here in old Massachusetts, some of our old houses like mine, 100 years old, has a knob and tube wiring. Not a great thing to have underneath insulation because it can get hot. Had to replace that. That was a little pricey. So it's good to know about these things before you jump in on your journey to realize what you might have to spend or save for. I got myself a new water heater when mine broke down. Fortunately, I could do that on short notice and picked up an induction stove when my wife with asthma started reading about all the leaking gas and how the problems that can cause for folks with asthma. So we quickly jumped into that, got an electric dryer, looked into solar, and when I decided not to take down a bunch of beautiful trees we have in our yard, so couldn't really do solar at the moment. Maybe with some better, more efficient panels down the road, I might be able to do that. I've got a hybrid vehicle right now, still got some life in it, but planning on an EV. And I've got the wiring for a charger that's all set for me right now if I need to, when I do get my EV, which will be coming up sometime soon. Heating and cooling was a bit more of a challenge. I've got some pretty new gas furnaces, have a lot of life left in them, and we have very high cost for electricity in Massachusetts. So it's actually easier, cheaper to heat with gas than it is electricity for me. So I'm waiting for some changes in our electric rates, which may be coming up next year through our legislature. And if it looks like the operating costs go down, I'll probably jump in and do that too. So I got a couple of quotes and prices are pretty reasonable with our rebates. Next. So, in general, there are a couple of pointers that we'll cover in our breakout room. We'll talk about planning, but we'll also talk about each of these steps depending on what your interests are and what you need more information about. Typically, everybody ought to start with an energy audit if you haven't had that done. Typically, it's usually free, and you learn a lot about what's going on with your home and where it's leaking air and where the cold air is getting in. Then completing any energy efficiency measures is a real good idea, especially if you're considering putting in a heat pump. But in general, a good idea no matter what. And then think ahead about these electric upgrades. If you're thinking about in the next year or two putting in a bunch of different appliances, you may or may not need to upgrade your system from 120 to 240 amps, or maybe put in a smart panel. A lot of times that can take care of all your needs. So you might want to get an electrician to check that out, see where you're headed with that. Check out solar right up front. You're going to be putting a lot of electric appliances in. If you can put up solar, good to look at that early on. Save a lot of money down the road with all the appliances you're going to put in. And then choosing among where to go with each of these things depends a lot on what's going on in your life and the age of your appliances and what your goals are in particular, what kind of rebates and tax credits. So that's tougher that has to be, you can't really generalize so much on that. You need to tailor that to your very specific needs. So in our breakout group, we're going to talk about planning, go through the Rewiring America Planner for a couple of minutes, and then we're going to focus on questions and issues that you have about all these topics that are of most interest to you. Back to you, Robert.
Yeah. Yeah, Roger, you mentioned having to remove knob and tube wiring in your house, but a lot of older houses still have that before you could do the installation. But also, at the same time, would you consider if you had, say, a 100 amp service panel, would you consider at the same time upgrading that to a 200 amp service so that you could have room for, mini splits and electrification, EV charging system, that kind of stuff?
Depending on where you're going to go and how quickly you're going to go, yes, that may be necessary. These days, though, there's an option called a smart panel, where you can get a gadget that hooks up to your panel that helps direct the traffic on your system. So that sometimes what an electrician would say you're going to need 200 amps, you can actually take your 100 amps, and if you parcel it out just right over time, make do with that. So I would suggest checking with an electrician and raising the question about whether a smart panel makes more sense or 200 amps. 200 amp service can be very expensive to put in. There can be a long delay because they may have to bring an extra line in from the grid in order to do it. So definitely deal with your panel. You're going to need to have enough openings in the panel to hook the things in you want at a minimum, and you may need an upgrade. Check in with an electrician early and ask the right questions. I see a question there from David.
Yeah, please forgive the background noise, but actually it's tree. We have some trees that we're removing so that we can install a solar panel
Okay.
in the right where and get the access to the sun. It's really going to be on top of a carport. But anyway, the question I have is my wife and I have had on-demand water heaters. I think there's three using gas ever since we had the house built. Uh, can a heat pump replace all of that? Yeah.
It wouldn't be an on-demand water heater. It would be a tanked water heater. And a heat pump water heater I mean, is that an option for you, or are you going to insist on getting an on-demand water heater?
Oh, no, it's just we would get a heat pump as long as it's
Definitely get a heat pump water heater. It's pretty straightforward. Obviously, you need a plumber to hook that up. They do have heat pump water heaters that'll plug into a regular 120 volt outlet. Used to be you had to have a 240 outlet, so it can be relatively inexpensive to get the wiring done. The main issue with a heat pump water heater is do you have a basement?
no, we don't.
Okay. The challenge with the heat pump water heaters, are usually going to be indoors, and the area surrounding the heat pump water heater is going to start to get cold because the heat pump is taking the heat out of the air around the water heater and putting it into the water. So that is an issue that you might need to consider, depending on where you might be putting the water heater. That area might need some additional heating on the outside in order to make it work. Does that address your question?
Yeah, we had our the actual hot water tank removed when we had the on-demand put in. So we'll have to get another um, tank, I guess. Is
Yeah,
that right?
you need it. It would come, a tank and the water heater come all hooked together very nicely in a compact way. And there's lots of them on the market now. Ours ran about $1,500, I think, for 60 gallons. So it works perfectly well and heats all the water we need. I see a
Yeah.
question here from Susan.
I'm just going to add one thing real quick. That's a great way to go. There are high efficiency electric water heaters if you need another option. So just something to put into your hat. Yeah.
Just a quick follow-up first on the water heater. So if you got a heat pump water heater, that would be a separate heat pump than, say, a ductless mini split. Is that right?
Yes. So
Separate.
the heat pumps for heating are either ductless, or if you already have a duct system in your house, it would be separately hooked up to that. The heat pump water heater is a separate appliance. Definitely a different thing.
Okay, thanks. So my main question, I'm in Somerville, Massachusetts, in a 100-plus-year-old triple decker. And I just had Mass Saves come out and do an energy audit. And to my surprise, they stuck something in the wall and there is zero insulation in the wall. So they gave me an estimate for blowing in the cellulose insulation. My new downstairs neighbors are really concerned about that kind of insulation because they're afraid that it's going to lead to condensation and mold forming. Do you know much about that?
Not an expert in that area, but you could probably get an answer from the contractor who's going to be putting that in. I haven't heard that to be a problem. I have it in my house, and I've had it for 30 years, and it's not created a problem yet. But you might want to check into that a little bit more, unless anybody here has an answer to that question. Not seeing any. Okay. I see another question from Dave. Is that right?
No.
No, okay. Hand is still up. Okay, so we can move, we have about 5 minutes left, so we can move into any other questions that people may have. We don't have to kind of stick to any one topic or another. Anybody have a question, want to tell us? Yes, go ahead there, David.
Well, I put in the chat what I learned about induction cooking. My sister discovered that you can buy a freestanding induction burner, or they come in pairs or larger arrays, and they're not very expensive and they work very well. So I'm not necessarily prepared to replace my ranges, but I am going to switch to double induction burners, a set of double induction burners, so I can make the transition. And they have the power boil, the super fast heating, just like the cooktops and ranges do.
Yeah. It's a great option. And for folks who even just want to try out induction cooking, around here you can actually take one out of the library and put it next to your stove and check it out, see if you like it. But your point is you actually can bring it in your house and use it, still have your gas there for use of the oven or a burner when you want it. If you have somebody in the house who insists on gas, but using the induction cooktops mostly is going to give you all the benefit. So it's a great idea. Glenn, another question.
Yeah. Does anybody have any experience with air to water heat pumps, like for heating, space heating? I know that's what a hot water heater, an air source hot water heater does. But if you have a house that already has the system, baseboard hydronic heating system already in place, does it make sense to look into a larger air to water system to heat that water?
Good question. If you have hydronic heating, so to my knowledge, for the typical baseboard system that's in place in most houses these days, there will be a heat pump coming out that can get water hot enough to use that. I don't think it's available yet. You can get a replacement hydronic system. It requires a different appliance to replace the baseboard that uses the lower temperature heat coming from the heat pump more efficiently than what you might have in place right now. So it's worth talking to a vendor about when this might become available, see what the timing is like, and how it might work out for you. But it's definitely a possibility. Okay. Other questions or concerns? Interested in information about other topics that we had there? Anything coming up? Okay. I see a question from David.
Yeah, I was just wondering if anybody has experience with kind of a pre-constructed uh, carport for solar purposes. I know there's some manufacturers, but I'm just not that familiar with them.
Anybody with that experience? No?
Okay, all
Sounds like
right.
I
sounds like a
haven't,
good idea, David, though, I have to say. Um, so let me, we had people with questions about a number of different things. So I'll add a few points about heat pumps. I'm a heat pump coach, so I have a little bit of an idea about how that works. And I certainly would second everything that Pam said about being very careful about choosing your vendor, getting three estimates. Nope, we're done.
Uh, hmm.
Roger, you're on mute.
All right, we got a couple more people. I see some repeat visitors here. And I guess I think Nancy and Roger were not here before, and Kate. So you guys are new. Uh, for you guys, let me just do a real quick run through. The other folks here have seen this, but I just want to show you very briefly what the planner can do. I'll make that quick so the two of you who've seen it before can also chime in about what you think is useful about it. So I'm going to share screen and bring that up for you guys.
Is there any way I can move to another? I wanted the finding funding workshop.
I I think if you leave the room, I think I can't guarantee this, but I'm assuming somebody might have stayed, and I can't promise you they stayed in the place where you need to go.
Yeah.
You
What about
might
what
get.
about using the list at the the squares on the menu at the bottom that says breakout rooms? Could he?
You could try that. Yeah, it's coming up, and it does look like I see a join button there in my screen at least. So try that as well.
Yeah, I just don't see the list. Anyway,
It's under more. Hit the circle that says more.
more. Okay.
Yeah, on mine it was under the breakout rooms. I clicked
Yeah,
it that way.
I see more
David.
and I see chat and captions, meeting settings.
Do you see breakout rooms?
No, I don't.
You do,
Funny.
David, do you know which room you want to go to? I may be able to just pop you over there.
Yes, please. It's how to find the funding one.
Okay, sure. Give me just a second. There's a couple Davids.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. All right. So for the rest of you, just really quickly, I do want to recommend that you consider going to the Rewiring America planner, and this is what it kind of looks like when you get there. And you can get started. I'll just show you what I did with my planner to give you an idea of what some of the resources are that you can gather by using the planner. And so I had already put in the kind of things that I have done. So it tracks everything that I did. So I did my water heating and my electric panel and my electric stove and all that stuff was completed. So you get a nice checklist. These are the remaining projects. And this is what you would start out with if you've done nothing. It would tell you what all the possible projects are that you could do in your home, and it would be tailored to your specific location, the square footage in your home, the type of fuel that you're using. You would enter that at the beginning, and the program, an algorithm that figures all this out, will take all of that into account. So let's say I wanted to take a closer look at my heat pump. It makes a claim it could reduce my operating cost by up to $890 per year. Because I have gas and it's Massachusetts, that may not be quite accurate. So take these estimates as ballpark estimates that might give you a little bit of a guidance, but you might need to dig a little bit deeper into some of the numbers. So if I look at this heat pump tab, it's going to give me some basic information. a little introduction, and I can look at costs and benefits. I can look at rebates and credits, and it even has a project guide, and it can help me find contractors. So if I scroll down as part of the introduction, you can see it gives me information about how long a heat pump lasts, some of the potential effects that it might have, and again, the benefits and also the greenhouse gas reduction benefits. The next section is on rebates, and they do a very good job with federal rebates. In Massachusetts, we have a lot of state rebates that they haven't really caught up with yet, but they're very good on the federal, so it's a good place to get started to see what's available here, at least as long as the administration continues to provide support for the IRA. And Robert gave you a nice intro about where states are at with that. And it gives you a bit of an idea of what the upfront cost might be, the installation cost for a heat pump. And this is about right for my house, based on the estimates that I've got. But again, ballpark figures. It gives you a little bit of a sense of what it might take. The weatherization package costs, mine were not quite this high because I had already a lot of double pane windows, didn't have to invest a lot in that. I had to put in some insulation. I had insulation in the walls, and Massachusetts covered almost the entire cost of the insulation piece. So that wasn't as accurate, a little overdone. And then you can kind of check off the steps here in each of the things you want to get going here, and it's the energy audit tells you a little bit about what it is, what you're trying to accomplish with that, and allows you to check it off once you have it done. So just a quick introduction to what you can get through Rewiring America. Any questions about that? All right. So why don't I just open it up for questions from you guys about any questions you have or topics you'd like me to cover a little bit in more detail. I'd be happy to do that either way. Yeah, go ahead there. John, good to see you.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, Roger. We're kind of neighbors in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
So, here's my question. The chart you just showed about heat pumps showed a range from $22,000 to $29,000, I guess average or something. But we've gotten two estimates. One was $65,000. The other was $70,000. And I just wonder. We have a three-story house. It's an older Victorian.
Okay.
That we're finding the cost to be really daunting, and I just wonder.
Tell me, what your heating system is like currently.
It's a let's see. It's a hot water. It's a natural gas furnace or boiler or whatever. Yeah, with hot water radiators. Yeah.
Okay. Now, did they recommend installing mini splits in multiple rooms in each story, or did they recommend putting in a duct system? Do you know what their suggestion was?
Well, that's interesting. I don't know what the distinction is between the two.
Okay. Well, I wouldn't expect you to.
Okay.
So, what we call mini splits are units that you may have seen in restaurants, or if you've been to Europe, they have them all over. And increasingly, you'll see them around here. And there are these little, typically units that sit high on the wall. They're about 3.5 feet long, and they have a little gadget that opens and closes, and it performs a function of an air conditioner, but also performs heat. So that sound familiar to you, John?
Yes.
Now,
and that's what our estimates have been for, that kind of unit.
That kind of unit. And how many of those units did they say you needed?
Well, let's see. It's up to 3 or 4 per floor. Each of 3 floors.
Okay. And are your floors divided up into a lot of small rooms?
Yeah, especially the second and third floors. Yes.
Okay. So the reason for and did they say how many outside units that they were going to be you're going to have put in?
I believe it was 2.
2 outside units. Okay.
Yeah.
Part of the issue here, it sounds like, is that you've got a lot of rooms that are separated off from each other. And if you don't have a way of circulating air between those rooms, for example, it is possible to put in openings above a door, for example, or if you usually leave doors open, then it's not a problem. You can get away with a lot of times fewer of the indoor units, if that's possible. My suspicion would be that Yeah, that price is, you might want to take a look. Well, you should, or just send it to me. Send me the estimates. I'll take a look at it for you. That
Yeah,
way.
that'd be great. Yeah, good. Thank you.
Yeah, that's what we're trained to do as heat pump coaches. I'll get a little bit of a sense of why your costs are getting up there so high.
Yeah.
You do heat all three floors, and how many square feet altogether?
How many square feet? About, I think it's about 3,500 total.
Yeah. Well, see, I have a 3,000 square foot house, and I would have two systems here, but we're ducted. And as a result of that, I'm coming in probably at about half the cost, and that's because we have a ducted system. The ducts are already in place. We don't have to run all those tubes and wires up and around. But
Got it.
send me your estimate. Take a look at it.
Thank you.
Just for folks who are anybody here have a heat pump or looking into a heat pump? Okay, Pam, you have one, Pam, right? And so, Roger, where do you stand with your journey on heat pumps?
We're looking to purchase some heat pumps. We've got central hot water gas now in Minnesota, and are looking to put in some heat pumps and then keep the backup system, the boiler as a backup for the time being.
Yeah. How far have you got? Have you gotten any estimates yet?
I did get some estimates, and then we decided to wait till more equipment comes online with the new refrigerants.
Yes.
And so I think what we'll do actually, our downstairs is fairly open room to room, and we may end up putting in two heads now and then doing another set later. And it seems like we might be looking at something around 15 grand, 20 grand. I'm not sure yet.
Good. It's a lot less than John. How many square feet in your home?
Well, it's not a full system though. So
That would be just the two heads for the two heads, basically.
yeah, I mean, I think we're looking at 5 grand per head kind of thing. And I also have with my brothers a house in Connecticut that we're looking at heat pumps. It's a rental house, and they're quoting an estimate of around 5 grand per head there. So, and that would be five heads, 25 grand, or a 1,200 square foot house, pretty small.
Mhm. Just for John, there's another option that can be considered when you have a lot of small rooms that are all broken up that can be less expensive that a typical contractor will probably not recommend to you, and that's what I call over the window units. Okay, it's like a window air conditioner, but now they make them so they're just kind of a saddle thing over the window. Have you seen those, John?
I have seen those, and I've been wondering how well they work.
My sense is that they're getting better all the time. I've been to a seminar on them. I'm going to get some more information about that. I'm not sure I would just go to Home Depot and pick one up and put it in without really looking into it a little more closely. But it would be substantially less expensive. It's not exactly do it yourself because they weigh a ton, but they are just drop it in and plug it in, and it'll just run off your circuit. And I'm sort of seeing increasingly that might be an option for some small rooms that are cut off from the rest of the house, and where a single head can't cover a large space. The single heads are much better if they can cover a large space. If they're putting a head per room, sometimes it's actually overheating and overdoing it, and that can be a problem as well. So something to consider.
Yeah. It's also an idea if you don't have to heat every room equally. I mean, we have some rooms that just aren't used, guest rooms where we don't have, when we don't have guests, why heat it? But, I have two quick questions for Roger Howley, which is, first of all, Roger, you talked about a head, and is the head the internal or the external unit? And second of all, Roger Howley, you mentioned waiting until new refrigerants become available, and I wonder if you could tell us more about that.
Yeah, my understanding, the heads are the ones on the inside, so the ones that hang on the wall.
Okay.
Or you can get a baseboard unit too. And then it's dictated that starting in 2025, manufactured units all have to run with new refrigerants that have less greenhouse gas effect on the climate. But the equipment, there's a lot in stock, I think, and it sounds like it's going to be hard for me to get what I want for another 12 months or so.
Yeah. So it's
Something
definitely
about
worth considering.
Yeah,
Yeah,
something about the earlier comment, and Roger knows way more about some of the what you've been talking about. But in our situation, what we got was a heat pump with backup resistance heating. So
Mhm.
in other words, we didn't need a like a gas backup or something like that because it was just part of the system that we had installed worked really well. So if it gets super cold and the heat pump has trouble keeping up, then this will kick in. And that's worked great. We made it at like
and it's a good heat pump will take you down to minus 17 degrees Fahrenheit on a pretty regular, predictable, reliable basis. But like if you're doing part of a house, you're going to have to keep backup for the rest of the house for sure. But that down the road, you might be able to get rid of that if you end up doing the whole house. That would be great.
Mhm.
So I see, Kate, you're there. Do you have any questions or want to tell us a little bit about where you're at?
I am in central Texas, south of Austin, and I have the newest home I've ever had that I bought in 2018. It was 3.5 years old then. So if it was built is like the last month of 2014. So I'm like right at 10 years.
Okay.
And I am wondering, maybe you've covered it, but who do I look for to do a valid energy audit? Do I go to my electric co-op, which is
Most likely, yes. Typically, in most states, it's your utility that offers that. And so I would start there, give them a call.
we have separate gas company versus electric.
Yeah.
So I guess I should ask both.
You can ask both. Yeah, in Massachusetts, we have the same entity that owns gas and electric, although they operate somewhat separately. It's a long story. We'll go into it. But
Oh, okay.
I think
Interesting.
my sense is in most. You can also take a look when Robert sends out his spreadsheet. He'll have a link in there for Texas that might get you started as well. But that's definitely the place to begin. And it sounds like, what kind of heat do you have right now?
Well, I have, why don't I know this?
Uh,
Because I have the AC guy is a sweetheart. He comes twice a year, once for the AC and one for the heat. I would say the heat is gas. Can it be gas and electric? Because he was fixing it and he wanted to show me the jets that were firing flame. He
well,
likes to show me the parts.
there would be, I mean, there is an electric component to anything gas to kind of get it going and to regulate it. And if you have AC, your AC is going to be electric and not gas.
Okay, the AC is in the same closet, the same tall unit, but I'm really, there's no light in there, so we just have the
That's all
door
right.
open, and I stand back and watch him do his thing, or I don't watch him,
Yeah.
but he's very knowledgeable. So I thought I might want to ask him some of these
You could
questions.
ask him, but just get to learn a little bit about what's going on, and also check to see if you maybe have a heat pump coach that you might be able to reach out to. I mean, for the average person, and for that's probably 90% of people don't have a great deal of knowledge about what's going on with their heating system, and having a
Well,
coach could be helpful.
what I was going to say before we're about to lose our minute and a half, but I'm part of the Sierra Club in Austin, longtime Sierra Club member, and there's a really a guy that is so on top of this, but he's not as knowledgeable as you guys who have done it, but he is trying to get the whole club to volunteer to give presentations about this. And I like to speak in public, but I have no desire to speak without knowledge. So
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
here partly just to learn by
okay.
listening.
All right. Well, you're taking first step. If you're really interested in learning about heat pumps, take the Rewiring America course. I took
Okay.
that myself. You will
Okay.
learn a whole lot very quickly, and you'll start to feel confident to give people some general advice.
That sounds good.
I don't,
Here,
Nancy, is Nancy behind there? Do you have anything before we have 30 seconds left? I don't see that Nancy is speaking up there. Okay. All right. Yeah, well that'd be fantastic if you got involved with that, Kate. So it sounds like Sierra Club's doing a good job out there in Texas. Yeah.
We have to. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
get me started.
Okay. Well, yeah, and a heat pump should probably do. I imagine your winters are not that harsh, but a heat pump probably would work well when the time comes to change your heating system. Yeah.
Except for Snowmageddon in 21. Did you hear about that? Snowpocalypse?
I think I remember
The
that.
polar vortex. We were
Yeah,
cold
yeah.
and everybody.
Totally crazy. Totally crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, it's been good to meet you. And John, send
Thank
me your
you.
stuff, and I'll take a look at it.
Thanks a lot.
All right, bye, guys.